All right, we're recording.
All right. Let's call this meeting to order then. I think last time's meetings minutes did get emailed out. Did folks have a chance to review them?
Yes. Karen, do you have a different sign-in sheet?
There were two that came around.
Yeah, that's for the last meeting.
Oh, they both had all the same names on it.
No, I only sent one.
Oh, there she was.
Yep, I know. Slicker.
Yeah, sure. I feel like the minutes that I saw were from the 2018 meeting. I felt the same way. Is that this? This is, oh, this is the right one now, but this is not what was emailed out, I think, correct? So.
I'll have them the same ones.
Has everybody signed in?
I did not.
Apparently not.
make it
Yeah, the meeting.
Thank you.
It's not very bad.
I got the meeting that I was at.
There's two. All right, I will circulate these around because these are the up-to-date minutes, and I move that we approve them once people have seen them.
I'll second one.
Are people all right if we continue talking while someone's doing it? Are you all right? Okay.
Please do.
All right. Did we get any correspondence, Mike? I did not receive any correspondence. Hooray! Brandon, a quick 30-second update on the paramedic program.
Yes, quick 30-second update. We're still sitting at 11 students. We're a little more than halfway done. We just recently had a trip to Strong Memorial to our cadaver lab experience, which Dr. Collin attended with us. That was a great experience all around. Great learning for the students, we had a lot of physicians in the room too. I've never been in an experience where there's so many physicians. The physician-to-student ratio is probably 2 students to 1 doc, so you don't get that in many scenarios. Yeah, we're also ramping up on our fall program. For about 2 months, I'll run 2 programs concurrently. So I'll start another program in August and be finishing up my current program in mid-November. So I'll have a couple months where I'm going concurrent. But otherwise, things are going pretty well, and they're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, which is great. It's good for me too.
The revised bylaws that we agonized over at our last meeting were emailed out to everybody. It looked to me like it was everything that we had agreed on.
I would just want to fix the problem at the very bottom. It needs to be fixed. Something that I have attention.
This is the new one. This is for this.
Oh, this is for this one. These rules shall be reviewed by the STREMAC every 2 years during the years to ascertain that a compatible relationship is maintained between the rules. It doesn't make sense. It just needs to be fixed. And it should just be like every 2 years and then period.
So take during years, so every 2 years to ascertain that a compatible relationship. That sounds great to me. I would move that we approve these with that small grammatical correction.
And I second it.
Hooray! Sorry.
I'm going to strike it. You will strike it out.
All in favor of that? Any opposed? I guess that carries then. QI status update. Have we had any luck in reforming a council QI committee?
There was some discussions with Terry Simons regarding what we were hoping she was going to do. My understanding is she's working on re-energizing that system. So there we are.
Treading water for the moment?
Trying to do
Okay. Oh, I'm definitely here.
You know they have a meeting scheduled here soon.
Yeah, yeah. It escapes me when that actually is.
The online learning platform, Mike, I know we had a little Skype or something session with the CNY folks, and
We're waiting for an agreement between this region and their region. It was approved and they're just working on that, and then they'll actually give us the information and log on and go from there.
but so then that is moving forward, and once we have it, we'll be looking to all you guys to create some content for it, I think, as well as determining what all we need to be tracking on that.
Correct.
The AED, PAD policy,
There was an old policy out there that and actually, it was just like the diversion policy. It referred to any BLSFR, primarily BLSFR agencies who were carrying AEDs had to go through this training, and it was also a certificate that they got along with it. It's a little outdated. I shared with Dr. Kellogg. It also required them to refresh, renew every 6 months. And speaking with Dr. Kellogg and some of the agency medical directors, they felt as though that was a little bit cumbersome. And alongside that, they also had to redo their AHA or Red Cross CPR as well, which kind of included that. So we talked a bit about trying to pare down that policy to something more compact, if that was the wishes of the body. And essentially just some sort of directive that they do need to be current, but probably not every 6 months.
and this would be AED and glucose and Narcan and all that. Yep.
Well, those are separate. Those are included in other content. But just the AED policy, it had a standalone. And so we spoke at length with the principal medical directors of the agencies.
Part of the difficulty is that we don't actually have any authority over what the BLS agency do.
Right. There's no authority, they're medical directors. So what we're looking for is a guidance document for the medical directors, and they're behind it. They want to be sure that providers are complying with updated training. The thing that we bumped up against is a lot of them don't ever touch the thing, and then when it comes time to touch the thing, there's a problem. And this really came to light when we were, Savannah County Sheriff's Office, they were refreshing twice a year at their request, not at our request. And, you know, we thought when we first went out to them, we would get a little bit of pushback. We're deputies, and why are we fooling around with this and stuff like that. You know, at the end of the class, I can clearly tell you that the majority of them come up to us and thanked us because they hadn't touched it in a long time, or had never touched it, other than to carry that case in and out of their car. Same thing with Narcan. So they really appreciated the opportunity, even though they were sort of compelled to do it. So I can't help but believe that BLSFRs, if they were being honest with themselves, wouldn't appreciate that same opportunity. We do currently offer the education out there, but they don't go and they kind of feel like, I don't need to go. I got this.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Department of Health, but you are correct with AEDs and epinephrine, the Regional Medical Advisory Committee has no authority over BLS agencies. But with the Narcan and the blood glucose, the Regional Medical, the REMAX does have authority over them because they have to seek REMAX approval.
Correct.
And my suggestion to agency medical directors who are concerned about their providers being proficient, take the initiative themselves, because that's truly between the agency and the medical director as far as the AEDs and
Epinephrine.
epi.
And that's just auto injector epi. Syringe epinephrine still requires regional approval.
Well, so not so much approval as acknowledgement, as we've been told many times. We don't have the option to deny somebody PAD.
Well, I'm not saying for PAD, but I'm talking about for syringe epinephrine, Narcan, and
Right,
blood
right.
glucometry, they have to get approval.
Right, but there's a discussion, at least a big part of it was AEDs.
Right.
That's really got to be an issue between the medical director that signed the paperwork and the agency.
But I think us offering a guidance document, which I like that terminology of saying this should be refreshed every so often. I think maybe to do it every 2 years opposite the CPR research, because you should presumably be getting it when you take your Red Cross or Heart Association CPR recertification. So if you do that 1 year and then you do some kind of AED refresher the next year, that should hopefully keep things fresh. And again, if Mike and Brandon and company are offering these as one venue to get it, if the medical directors want to go out and do it in their agencies, that would be the best possible outcome. But if they don't want to, and certainly a lot of our medical directors have a lot of agencies that they're responsible for, offering this in a timely fashion.
We do currently offer the education, but we taking the opportunity to provide not just AED, but we do an AED update, a Narcan update, if they're an epi. We do any update they want that's appropriate for them. So it's an educational opportunity for all of them. When we do it 3 times in each county, geographically dispersed.
Is there a charge for that?
No, sir.
Wait, are you doing this at fire departments that just have AEDs? Like only?
No, we just picked 3 geographically,
Right.
mutually convenient locations
Right.
in all 3 counties, and we offer that education. We put out a notice of it, and everybody's welcome to attend. Anybody in any agency.
Where do you put the notice out? Because I didn't see like. well,
We
Facebook.
send it out we email it out to every
I don't do Facebook.
agency CEO, and we also email it and ask the EMOs to broadcast it. And in our travels, we poke up little posters.
But are these like the fire departments that don't have medical directors? You know what I mean?
No, because to get an AED or PAD, they have to have either a medical director or
Healthcare provider.
provider.
Yeah, but like Pan Post doesn't have a medical director.
We email, if they don't have a medical, we email the chief.
Oh, yeah.
Or a
So you
medical
can send
chief.
a chief. Send a
Yeah.
chief. No?
And
We
it goes
get-
up to each agency.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I was just curious, because I hadn't seen it for our area, like Gangles, Coopers.
Right, I haven't seen it either, and I know
Coopers,
about it.
Campbell, I've seen it on Facebook.
Yeah,
We
somebody
get it
has
out.
sent their PAD application.
I don't know where the notices go to.
Yeah.
That's the disconnect.
Yeah.
I bet if we send an email to a third of our listservs come back as, it bounces back, no longer in service, or that chief is no longer the chief, and he or she doesn't pass it along to the new medical director.
Does it go on the radio at all?
Some of the EMOs broadcast it.
Yeah.
We asked them to, particularly like, if it's going on this week, with the broadcast this week. One of the problems is the same problem the state keeps hammering down on us is especially with the small agencies, it's MikeChief@AOL.com, and then next week I'm not the chief anymore, and the email keeps coming to me. We've tried to get them to do a legacy email address that belongs to the agency, like West Elmira Fire Chief at Gmail, and that belongs to West Elmira Fire Department, or through their website, whatever the case may be. So it has some sort of survivability, and the state's been hammering on that, and they run the same situation. They send out the renewals, and the renewal pops back. So we also try to, Karen solicits for updated information every year, and some of those we get back, and some of those we don't get back, and again, it's this process of who's getting these things. We give out based on the best information we have. And again, we go out and hit the streets as well. I mean, when Brandon makes his trips to Bath every week, I know he hits a couple agencies along the way, and anytime we go out there, we try to poke a poster up in their bunk room, or whatever the case may be. And it's on Facebook. It's out there if they want to.
I just think of places like the Iron Mall, have signs for AEDs. I have no idea who's responsible for upkeep and running and training for people in the hall, or the Clement Center, they have an AED.
That's a separate issue. This is just the VLSFR, sort of
Yeah.
the agencies. The pad thing, we chase down a whole different direction, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. Because they,
Right.
So I think for us today, at least I think it's a good idea for us to provide the guidance to the BLS FR medical directors that we think it's a good idea for you to be refreshing this information annually. If your providers are taking their CPR course, that counts, so it should be every year in opposite to that. Again, it's up to them how they want to do that. If they want to take advantage of what Mike and Brandon are offering, that's great. If they want to do it themselves, that's great. If they want to blow us off, that's not so great, but they can do that if they so choose.
Or they can choose to do in-house. or-
Right. As long as they document and track, because I know, speaking with Dr. Emmerman and Bremer, they would like it tracked.
And Like I said, in all fairness, pay should be coming down on the agencies that they.
Yes,
find.
and they're willing to, but I mean, we want to partner with them to help them. I mean, like Emmerman has a bazillion agencies. Bremer's about to have half a bazillion agencies. So we just want to support whatever they're trying to do.
So I would move that we draft such a supporting document that would be the time frame that I laid out. All in favor? All opposed? All right, moving on. STREMAC committee duties, I don't think that did get emailed out.
No.
So we'll push that one down the road. Any updates from the department?
We have obviously not had a CMAC meeting or state meetings. Those are coming up next week. We certainly encourage anybody who can attend, or we do offer video visibility on it. So it's definitely a worthwhile experience to see how all the functionings in Albany occur in those circumstances. From the Bureau standpoint, we are continuing to work within our Education Bureau to update and improve our CME recertification processes and such. Unfortunately, that paperwork is not ready to be rolled out yet for the updates and reduction in the hours and so forth. We hope to see that coming down the track if at all possible. The BLS protocols, we're looking for an adoption of those beginning on August 1st, the statewide BLS protocol update that was approved at the last CMAC meeting. Has been signed by the commissioner, and is looking for a rollout by the 1st of August related to that. We additionally are looking at potentially a statewide LMS system. I know that at your last meeting, you guys voted and have moved forward on your system, which is great. Okay, and that's awesome, and kudos to all of you for headed down that road. As you know, anything with the state will take a little bit of time, so I would encourage you to continue on that road and such, but we are looking to try to provide a more robust online delivery method for not only educational purposes, but certainly many other facets. Recertification paperwork, recertification in general, reciprocity, which is already available in a somewhat online fashion, but we are definitely looking to transition a lot away from. My boss to my right here has spent the better part of the last 7 months digitizing many of our processes that we do from a regulatory standpoint and providing those into a digitized format. And I think that process is going to continue with many of the other processes that the Bureau itself does throughout. So that is something huge in that realm. Probably another big indicator is continuing to attempt to support our instructor classes and instructor certifications and maintaining our instructors in our EMS settings across the region. As you know, we are having a tough time growing EMS providers, and if that makes matters worse, we're having a tough time growing EMS instructors. So whatever support that the physicians from the REMAX can do to help provide guidance, support, and encouragement for those providers that you identify as being quality instructors or FTOs. We can roll them into potential CLI classes. I think you guys have a CLI class coming up in the near future. Those would be, we definitely need to begin to grow that, because we're going to see a pretty significant dip in the future if we don't. certainly this region is seeing it. And I know Brandon shaking his head yes in the back. So he definitely feels it as being the primary CIC down here.
Only.
Well, primary, only are synonymous terms like diversion and closed, but, so noted. So noted, yes, very good. The, one of the other things, just from a regulatory standpoint and the Bureau standpoint, is we, as we go out and we do our inspections of our agencies, and I've kind of talked about this before, but I have a few more people in the crowd, so I'll say it again. We are challenging ourselves to do agency inspections more frequently than we have in the past. Previously, for volunteer entities, it was about every 6 years. We are certainly, what do you call us, a scarce resource?
Yes,
or
scarce resource.
We are still a human short in our office, and I don't want to say man or woman, I wouldn't want to go there, but we are still a human short in our office. I actually filled Ed's vacancy from 2016. So Jim's vacancy, if you're familiar with our office, that began last May, is unfunded currently, and it's on a critical fill list. Hopefully, maybe we'll see one in 5 years. But with that being said, we're still trying to strive to see agencies more often. One of the things that I'm seeing, at least from my perspective when we're out seeing agencies, is certainly a lot of the lacking issues having to do with policies and procedures, QA and QI, and training and education records. So those are the struggles. I mean, it's typically not the commercial agencies that we see these with, but remember, we hold commercials and volunteers to the same standard, right? So if you are an agency medical director of these agencies, I encourage you to be involved with some of the policy procedure overviews and the compliance with the 800 standard. We literally send a preemptive email, and I think Mike has probably seen some of them that I think I've sent out, of, this is what we're looking for. And it's an open book test, if you want to call it that, but oftentimes, there's a limited lack of support within the agency itself. So what we're also doing, and we've done in this region and the southwestern region, is when we have identified challenges, we've included the response or the follow-up to those inspections to the agency medical directors as well. So if you see any emails from me that says you're CC'd in the email line, if you are not the current standing medical director, I will tell you that in our database, you are. So that hopefully keys you to say, hey, I'm not the agency medical director for so-and-so, and then we can start that conversation too. But our goal is to include you because you are definitely a part of that whole system. And I think that if your agency is having struggles, it's important for you guys and gals to know that. So that would be all from me. Certainly we have my boss here today, so we can give him an opportunity if he'd like.
Yeah, I think that, well, a couple things. You just mentioned the EMS Memorial and the,
Shame on me, and I apologize.
The EMS on tour for EMS Week, those would be great, but, and you've got the dates better than I do.
Yeah, so let me do that real quick. I apologize. I should have started off with that. The EMS Memorial is May 21st. It will occur at 11 o'clock, and it is in the Capitol, what do we call that, square?
Empire Square.
Empire Square there. We are adding, it's either 7 or 8 names to the EMS Memorial this year. So EMS providers primarily this year are dying from 9/11 based diseases. If you have not seen the EMS Memorial, there is a significant number of names on the EMS Memorial. In fact, it's almost to the point where we're going to have to look at new stones because there's so many names. And it's only available for EMS providers who have died in the line of duty or as a result of an injury or illness that is directly attributed to the line of duty. You don't think about that in our world, but I mean, I think we've had multiple challenges, and you saw that law enforcement recently shot a patient. That could have been an opposite direction. A couple of years ago, we had an EMS provider that was shot in a very similar opposite situation by the patient. So it is a very significant thing. If you have the opportunity to attend, that would be awesome. I can pack you away as baggage in the car and take you with me. Just don't tell the state, we're not allowed to have non-state employees in the car. But with that being said, it's also available online. I just encourage you to take a look at it in that regard. EMS on Tour, EMS Week. The EMS Memorial happens on Tuesday of EMS Week. The 19th begins EMS Week. And what we are asking is our EMS agencies, and this has been well sent out relative to the regional councils and program agencies, excuse me, but EMS on tour, we're looking for Sunday the 19th for EMS agencies to commit to going out into the community and basically showing themselves off to the community. And the reality is we need to recruit and retain our EMS providers, and we also need to educate the community about what EMS is, the challenges we face, but what we can also offer to the community. So hopefully, if you are involved in an EMS agency, and I know that the good doctor down there just got the fire department essentials done, so God bless you. You know, but if you're involved directly in an EMS agency in those capacities, you know, we encourage you to encourage them or be part of that. Because I think it's huge. We talked about, you know, we spent almost 2 hours talking about hospital challenges and so forth. But, I mean, it all starts with the patient, right? It all starts with the person who decides to either go to the hospital, call 911, or whatever the case may be. And if they understand that whole process, maybe they can be part of the solution as well. Whether it be being a member or an EMS provider or working within the hospital or, I don't know, calling their primary doctor for their stuff till the person's going to the ER. But that's just my 2 cents. So, those are those 2 topics.
The only other thing I'd like to say is that, you know, our bureau director and our deputy director are doing more of a listening tour still. You know, they haven't really spent a significant amount of time in our region, but they have put forth an effort to come out. So if you know of any large EMS, you know, either drills or opportunities for a little bit of, you know, visitation, they love to come out and basically meet. Now, it's a scarce, you know, again, we're a scarce resource, but they're traveling all throughout the state, but certainly, go ahead.
And I'm sorry, how would we communicate that?
You can either just send a note to Don or, you know, basically let us know that, hey, this stuff is coming up.
I'd like to highlight our Savannah County Sheriff's class.
You know, that, something to that would be very, very interested in, you know, now, scheduling may be difficult, or if not, at least, you know, either Don or myself could potentially come out and, you know, we'd like to also visit that. We're trying to get more, and again, we're a scarce resource, we're trying to get out more with the EMS agencies to hear what's going on, hear best practices, and to also ensure that from a bureau perspective that we're trying to meet their needs and we're being responsive and we're trying to streamline our processes as much as we possibly can. Again, you know, we're the state, we're a scarce resource, we're trying our best, but we're also trying to you know, look at the feedback and look at, we know that there's significant challenges throughout the EMS system, and we're looking to, you know, optimize everything that we can from a procedural standpoint, protocol standpoint, and there's a lot of moving parts. But the bureau, our bureau director has been with us, you know, it's been a year already, and there's been significant improvements. We've got a long way to go to get to the ultimate objectives that he has, but I think that we're moving the bureau forward. I think nobody would debate the fact that the bureau was a little bit stagnant related to some things. I'm not throwing any stones related to some things, but we've been a bit re-energized. So I think that that's really good. There's a lot of positive momentum, and from a communications perspective, if there's anything that the regional office or you know, certainly that we can refer up to our bureau directors, we need to hear that kind of stuff. We appreciate the work that you guys are doing, so thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
I have a quick question. Many years ago, when I was director of some of the services, I just volunteered and kind of fell into the job of learning and helping and directing, but I never received a pamphlet, piece of paper, checklist of saying, okay, these are your duties, these are the things you're responsible for, these are the things you have to have in line at your facility, where maybe somebody else would know, but the medical director isn't informed, he just goes by the seat of it. Did you have a pamphlet or something like that that can be sent out to new directors or old directors who may have forgot or remember nuances? Because as you said, you are going to come and visit and you give them a heads up, but if they have that way ahead of time, they might be able to start to prepare so that they aren't deficient. So I only raised that question. Do you have a pamphlet of something like that?
So in definitely my experience in other regions is they have some regions actually have a little bit of formalized training. Some have called it a base station course and different things along those lines to at least provide what medical direction in general is for physicians. Some have provided kind of what you're talking about when they sign off as the medical director. I know, or I understand I'm responsible for X, Y, and Z type of stuff. I have no problem working with certainly the program agency and Dr. Kellogg. Maybe it's something that you actually build and put together. I don't know that the department itself does not have a specific thing. I will tell you that. But I think it's a collaboration of the policy statements on medical direction. We have several of those, of course. We have several of many policy statements.
Yes.
But I think it would be a collaboration of that. It would be a collaboration of the Article 30 statements relative to medical directors' responsibilities, and then whatever your STREMAC type of stuff is. So if Mike and I can work together and loop in Dr. Kellogg, and then maybe by the next meeting have something at least for you guys and gals to look at.
And are you also talking about what the agency expectations are related to the regulations, or mostly just the medical director stuff?
Medical
Okay,
director
gotcha,
stuff.
thank you.
I mean, I'm not doing that anymore, but
Yeah, that's a good waste though.
it would be nice if, because medical directors do change, and the person walking in really needs to know their responsibilities rather than be deficient and not know about it because they're ignorant.
Maybe a welcome to the new medical director packet.
And if you're looking for the policies that agencies are required to have, those are actually 800.21. In the regulation, there's a very specific list of policies that every agency is required to have. I was thinking that was part of the questions. How do I make sure my agency is doing what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, we have a very robust checklist, like I said, that we send out to agencies for what their expectations are, so we can provide that as part of this, maybe like welcome to the new medical director packet. Big Dr. Kellogg's big face on the front of it.
And some cheeses and sausages to live.
Are you sure you really want to do this in the bottom?
Sorry to digress.
No, I think that's a good thing. EPCR endorsement for Cohocton. Cohocton is wanting to get EMS charts.
Actually, they already have EMS charts, and they got caught when they transitioned to version 3. And they're basically missing this piece of paperwork, and it's just an endorsement from this body and from the council.
They're already doing it. I say they should keep doing it.
Go for it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, hooray. On to sadder news now. Dr. Morrow contacted me to let me know that he is going to be stepping down as the medical director of Corning at some point in the near future. Not quite sure when. And while he is moving on to do something else, would like to relinquish his medical direction of many of his EMS agencies as well. I certainly will be very sad to see him go, as I'm sure you guys will too. There's kind of two pieces of this. Number one is we want to throw him a dinner to celebrate all of his contributions to EMS in the region. And so I'll be reaching out to all you guys to try to schedule a time that we can get together. Dr. Moore, if you can let me know some days in the next couple months that would work best for you.
Sure. We're gonna have it at your house. I heard it's very nice.
I should get official notification first. I mean, I've been told the date is going to be October 1st, but that is like a projection. It's not an official notice yet. So
Either way, we want to have dinner for you.
yes.
Okay. The other piece of that is we have to find people willing to pick up the many burdens that he has been carrying for us. And so I'm looking for volunteers that are interested in becoming medical directors for some of his agencies, most of which are in Steuben County.
Right. Well, just to let you know what I did, so Dr. Harris is the chair for Guthrie, okay, over all Guthrie facilities, and since he's going to be the chair for, he'll be the supervisor for the director of Corning, whoever that is going to be. I basically told him, that's your problem now.
So after that, it became my problem.
Oh, sorry.
Just so you know. So after he sent out a letter to his agencies, Dr. Harris sent out a follow-up that I guy and now you're gal to help coordinate coverage for AEDs. And if you need a medical director, if you would like a medical director, here I am.
Came with a raise, I'm sure.
Yeah. Nope. So if they need help, that was sent out to them. You don't have to use me, obviously. If you want to, that's fine.
I was gonna suggest you could make it easy on yourself, and, honestly, the agencies are kind of responsible to find it.
They are, but they
resource is
but they
poor.
gave my name and number, my cell phone, so if you need me. Because I don't have an office,
That
so.
was good of them.
Yeah.
Um,
So offering assistance if they need it, if they don't want it, that's fine too.
I mean, there's a million Guthrie doctors in Cornwall now, so, I met a couple really nice ones in the last month or so. So I'm sure remember you can delegate. But agencies bear some of the responsibility to secure that.
Absolutely. That was my name was thrown out to them, so if they need help with anything. He didn't want to leave them empty.
Probably got another volunteer right here.
I was going to talk to her and see if she.
So Dylan, do we have the authority to make recommendations for pay raises for those people who take on additional responsibilities that they were burdened for?
God, I wish I had.
You're naming that the wrong person.
Yeah.
So is Dr. Callahan taking on more?
Dude, you kill me. I'm not a medical director for anybody.
Yeah. Be careful.
Yeah.
We'll give you a pack.
Actually, I apologize.
Actually, can I have a pack?
Adding Karen to my email.
I apologize because I have to leave in a few minutes because I still use this afternoon. But I had a really quick question for you guys. Can I ask this just off topic a little bit? So Steuben County lost their funding for their critical incident stress debriefing training. Do you guys have anything to help with that, or no?
It's kind of a little bigger issue than that.
Oh, so you
Steuben
just
County
volunteer for
didn't lose their funding for quite a number of years. The REMSCO funded, sort of funded the critical incident stress.
I don't need to be. I mean, I just yeah.
We found out that we couldn't legally do that.
So
So
do you guys have any funding for that?
That's the problem.
The short answer is no, unfortunately. no.
So if people want to they just have to volunteer their time to get trained to be trained.
Yeah, I know that there's training frequently offered in the Rochester and the Buffalo regions just because I'm on those mailing lists. So I do see those frequently. Do you see those same notifications when they come out? Okay. And I know that training it's not necessarily free, but it's relatively inexpensive.
So if we wanted to email you, we could to get that training.
I can send you whatever notices that I currently have relative to that,
Okay, thank
absolutely,
you.
or at least
Sorry, I just
connect
wanted
you
to
with the people that do that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a huge thing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
We also reached out to the county Brian. Is it
Brian Harder.
Mental health.
Yeah.
And he was going to see if there's something he could do, and his Steuben counterpart may be able to do something.
Okay. Because there were a few of us that would go get the training.
Brian Hart was very interested.
Oh,
but
all right. That'd be great.
I don't know if it's got any traction yet.
Thank you.
The other piece of reassigning agency medical directors, apparently, unbeknownst to us until recently, there's a limit to how many agencies one person can be the medical director for. Is 10 the magic number for BLS agencies?
Yes, I believe so. Yes. It's also based on providers, and I literally am putting this into a folder as we speak, so I will bring it up, and I have the link.
At any rate, while he's looking it up, we can make a waiver for specific people to be allowed to be medical directors for more agencies / more providers than are stipulated under the guidance from the state. So I'm quite certain that Dr. Nimmerman exceeds the number of agencies he is legally supposed to be directing. I would like to propose that we waive Dr. Gimmerman's requirements so that he can continue to do the excellent job he's been doing. And I believe Dr. Bramer, out in Savannah, is in the same boat.
That many agencies out there?
He's gonna have.
Oh, jeez.
So the policy statement is 11-05, which will be included in the stuff that I sent you, Mike. And the statement is, a service medical director means a physician identified by the EMS service who has been approved by one or more REMACs as having met the credentialing policies and procedures, who is directly responsible for the medical care provided by the certified EMS personnel of that EMS service, and who provides and participates in the EMS service's quality improvement program. No physician may act as a service medical director for more than 10 EMS services. A ratio of physician to certified EMS personnel supervision must be provided as follows: 500 to 1 for certified EMS personnel who provide AED, 100 to 1 for certified EMS personnel who provide advanced life support, provided that the maximum number of personnel to be supervised by an individual physician may not exceed 500 AED or 100 personnel.
That's all the agencies that you have.
But,
is like-
yeah, so in essence, we need to say that it's okay for Dr. Bramer to continue doing that, and potentially for Dr. Bramer to be doing that as well.
I think that's fine.
The chap had a motion, I think.
All right. All in favor of allowing that waiver?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries too.
Just a side note that Bramer and Dr. Hellner are both interior firefighters.
One additional thing not on our agenda that Mike brought up, the question of pediatric BBMs being okay for all ages and sizes, and allowing that, either saying we allow that in the region, which I think we already do, or saying that we require that in the region. I like that. I think that the pediatric BBMs, the evidence shows that they are perfectly effective for ventilating adult patients. And if it saves our agencies a little money in buying 2 different sizes of bags, I certainly would approve them doing that. I don't know, I could go either way on requiring them to do it.
The question came up from agencies who were looking to purchase, what should we buy? And they were curious about the BBMs. They basically want to know if they were allowed to, you could buy with just the BBM, just the PDM.
Just the PDI.
No. 824 doesn't allow that.
I was gonna say, we carry 3 different sizes of
BLSSR?
Well, BLSFR technically isn't regulated under the 800 standard.
Oh, they just want.
However, the expectation, if they have an agency code, the expectation is they will meet the equipment standard of the 824 standard. And that's in the paperwork, the application, they sign acknowledging that they are going to meet that standard. So while I say they're not regulated, if there was a question, okay, they're going to be held to the 824 standard. The 824 standard requires an adult BVM capable of, I can find the exact wording, but capable of 1,000 cc's and such. Now, from a medical care standpoint, if you wanted to approve a medical care deviation that said you can use a pediatric on an adult, that's certainly within the REMAC's realm to do that, but you can't reduce the equipment required under the 800 standard for the agencies.
So what you want to
Does the regulation say expect or require? Because I expect a lot, and I don't get it.
Are you talking about for ambulance or for BLS?
BLS,
Oh, BLS.
first response.
Yeah, well, yes.
Understand that BLSFR agencies are in danger of losing their tuition funding if they don't meet the requirements set forth in their application to be a BLSFR agency.
What worries me more is the legal requirement by the Department of Health saying that they expect to meet those standards. If they don't meet those standards and there's a bad outcome, what type of liability protection do they garner from that? Which would be actually just the opposite. It would be a legal liability for them not having that. And so I would, for me, I would just steer clear of it for an $8 price of a bag valve mask, have 2 different sized bag valve masks. You know, especially for a BLSFR agency.
In the application process, we do require them to submit an equipment list.
Right.
So whatever they submit, we basically require it to be in conjunction specifically with that. So, you know, they'd have to give us an update and a modification and then sort of a justification. It's more of a, you know, by the time they do all that rigmarole, it would be better just to allow the exception as the PDF for patients to guarantee chest rise.
And for BLSFR, it's 826, by the way, is the equipment standard that we hold them to. And it states manually operated self-refilling bag valve ventilation mask in pediatric and adult sizes with a system capable of operating with oxygen-enriched and clear adult and clear pediatric sized masks with air cushion. So it requires.
Never mind it.
Again, from a care standpoint, and I know where you're going, I heard the study. From a care standpoint, it's well within your realm to adjust the care, but the equipment has to be on.
All right, so we'll leave that as is for the moment. Just to put the final temporary nail in the diversion thing. So based on what we talked about, I will write a letter on behalf of us to go out to all the agencies and hospitals that at present, diversion is only in the case of the hospital shutting down per the state. Nobody else, no on diversion for any other reason right now. If you do go on diversion, you have to contact STREMS and the DOH immediately to inform them of your status and that a new policy will be forthcoming. I think, in my mind, the right way to proceed right now is maybe to draft up 2 possible policies that we can then craft and polish and decide if we like them both or we like one or the other. That would be one of there's closed and there's open and that's it. And the other one that would be there's closed, there's open, and there's open, but hey, just want you to know that we're a little bit slammed right now. And I think those 2 things massaged in some fashion seem like the only 2 possible outcomes right now. So I start putting those together and then circulate those amongst us. We can debate. Is that reasonable? That's all I got.
Just really quick, maybe it'll save you time. I don't know, is there a strong opinion versus the A versus B in this room so that he doesn't have to draft 2? I sort of am leaning one way versus another. I think Charlie probably is. So rather than having you go through 2 separate documents, you might feel that the room has an opinion already.
Sure.
So those in favor of open, closed, black, black and white. Raise your hand.
Probably where we have to go with it.
Those in favor of the 3.
Yes.
Closed, open with the open, and open with the legs.
I think that's the way to go, and clearly I'm voted, but there are going to be circumstances where, you know, if you have a flood, your department's going to be closed. But if you have somebody who, like a sick physician, or somebody who, a physician has cardiac arrest, where you have to be closed temporarily until you replace that person, which may be an hour, maybe 2 hours. It has to be a
Department
period
should
of
have a
time.
backup plan for that.
Well,
I mean,
I'm just giving you the concrete issues of closed usually means for an extended period of time versus a diversion.
I guess I would encourage this, and only because I kind of put this out there when this happened a couple months ago, was whatever policy you develop, I mean, certainly it's your guys' problem to fix, but whatever policy you develop, I think there needs to be certainly an incremental period of time for review, whether it be hourly, 2 hourly, whatever the case may be, so that you don't have a situation where it goes on for X period of time.
so Pennsylvania is every 4 hours have to be updated. So, I mean, the 911 centers, you know, otherwise they revert back if you have a call.
That's good.
I like that.
I like that too, very good.
Yeah, if I don't hear from you, you're back on open.
All right, so we'll go with the one policy. I think that the there's a clear will of the majority here.
I just hate for you to
Yeah,
go
no.
through the work
Yeah.
of drafting two when
I appreciate that.
eventually we may end up with a strong opinion one way or another.
Well, yeah, and yeah, I agree. I mean, but certainly it'll be easier to, number one, figure out what we're closed for, black and white. Then you get into the special situations, which all of us who've been around have been there,
Right.
been in those situations, and can dream up more.
Well,
I mean, again, we don't have the statutory authority to tell hospitals what they should and shouldn't be doing internally, but I have no problem with us recommending in this document or elsewhere that if things are getting hairy, you should be activating your internal disaster management plans and.
And I think what Dr. Young had done in the previous, I was actually at the same thing when he developed that policy in the Western region, was they used examples such as calling extra staff, such as close same-day surgeries, or cancel same-day surgeries that we're holding beds for, and those types of scenarios. Because quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, from my perspective, from an EMS provider at the time, it provided a little bit more of an emphasis to fix the problem.
So that's exactly right. So 3 weeks ago, we went on diversion for the first time, not the first time, but for an extended period of time because of things. And that's exactly what happened when I had been pressuring all along to cancel my same-day surgeries, so I think, going forward, you're gonna see that, we won't be on diversion any longer, but we have a certain threshold they're canceling. And so when we hit that internal disaster level, so I think, I don't know what's going on in Corning right now, but that's certainly what our PH is doing.
And I don't want to speak on behalf of the hospital program for the 405 code, but I think it's also important that each of the, even though the REMAC comes out with a open and close policy, that each of those facilities, based on the 405 code, if the current policy says that you have delays and diversion and all those kind of things, they're going to have to do internal reviews on those. And I think that our hospital program would be advocating towards that. One of the other things I was just going to mention, Dr. Collins, if you don't mind, is that we will provide you with at least our notification process for the hospital. I mean, really, the hospital notifies the hospital program, administrator on duty, or the state watch center is how our process goes. So we'll give you that updated information. So perhaps that notification process could be included either in your policy or as an SOP or however you want to do it. But we'll make sure that the hospital program gets back to you on that. Okay.
So if you close, does that mean you're locking your front doors to walk-ins?
Yes, I think that has to be.
That's what I want to make sure that's what we're talking about.
Would you guys concur that that is the state's position?
Yes. And the other component of that is that protocol that we, like, I'll give you an example when when Oshai was closing, or I'm sorry, Children's was closing down and moving to Oshai, there was a transition plan. So in that, if your hospital's closed, we would require that you have, the hospital program would require that there's ambulance on site.
There,
Yeah,
right,
so
yes.
so
We
that
did
would,
that according.
yeah, so you'd have to have that
Yeah,
included,
you have to have
yes.
the ambulance
So-
there in case
So they have to
somebody
transfer
shows up.
somebody out. It's
Yes.
got to be dedicated
Right.
and immediately backfilled.
Right.
So,
I would think that if we are closed, we would be calling you to say, take patients away from our floors.
Although if you're closed, we've been bringing all the patients to you.
Perhaps.
Well, because I think when Sydney closed, the same thing happened. They had to post an ambulance there as part of their closure program.
Yes.
They were required to post an ambulance there for anybody that showed up at the ER expecting to be seen.
I think when we did it at Corning, I think we needed to have an ambulance there for a few days after. or
There was,
something, right?
yeah, an extended period of time. Same thing with,
Period of time where we had to have an ambulance there
Makes sense.
just hanging out, just in case somebody didn't know the hospital wasn't there anymore.
And then we also require, in that period of time, we said, okay, give us the statistics as to how many drive-ins you're having, how many ambulance transports there were, to kind of modify it off to say, okay, it's okay to shut this down. And that goes all the way up to Albany, so as to, they make that decision to say it's acceptable to back that ambulance off, so, hospital side, so.
Being non-voting, I gotta say, I think from the council standpoint, I feel comfortable speaking on behalf of the council and the operations side. I really think black and white is the way to go. The problem is when you leave that gray area for something that might happen, eventually that boundary is gonna get stretched and stretched and stretched, and we're gonna be back where we were at.
It's just that anything gray is just, it's opening up for confusion and discontent.
I think, and then there's two other things that I would encourage you to consider as well. All right, and that's certainly whatever policy you come up with is notifications of the agencies, both commercial and volunteer. Faxing things to a fax machine doesn't work in any capacity. You know, in talking with, and we had Mike invited me to the EMO meeting recently, you know, and even one of the emergency managers had made the comment that his 911 center, they don't have time to walk over to the fax machine and check the faxes. They check it on the way to the bathroom or the lunchroom, but they don't, if a fax comes in, it can sit there for 45 minutes. So coming up with some level of notification procedure so that both, I mean, obviously, you know, Irway and AMR, it's pretty simplistic. They have dispatch centers, right? But, you know, Jasper Ambulance in Steuben County doesn't have a dispatch center, except for the 911 center in Steuben County. And how does that work? You know, how does that system work? So I think you have to engage the EMOs in that conversation. You know, is it through an electronic format? Is it through, I mean, there's a multitude of different electronic formats that are out there, these alerting systems that are out there.
In all reality, it has to be a handshake acknowledgement. There has to be where both sides acknowledge that the message was received and understood.
You know, I mean,
right now, I don't think anyone knows if your hospital is on diversion. I don't think the providers working in the emergency room often know.
that is true.
I don't think the ambulances often know, and the 911 center and the dispatches often don't know. So that's our biggest flaw right now, is actually notification. If we can't fix that, then fixing the policy is not gonna.
I almost wonder, you know, going to this very black and white model, part of the notification should almost be to the media to say, this hospital is closed right now, because people walking in shouldn't be coming to that hospital either, and they need to be made aware.
I mean, you know, the
As
crazy.
much as that's gonna upset the hospitals to hear they gotta do that, that's,
Now, you said you don't have the authority to force them to do that?
I don't think we do.
Yeah, then you're wasting ink then,
Well,
on that line.
no, because the hospitals can choose to do what they want to do, but if they choose to say, hey, regardless of your pre-hospital policy, we're still on diversion, my first call is to Channel 18 and say, hey, 20 hospitals on diversion.
But
And
maybe I'm
you know what, I
misunderstanding.
bet that ends quickly.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding diversion. Diversion is unless it's
To tell the
the
public.
point where the hospital is closed. I mean, it's a request from EMS, right?
Yes.
I mean,
But-
EMS does not have to honor anything other than the fact that the hospital says our doors are locked, nobody can come in.
But I think that's what we're saying we're going to, is the
Okay.
policy
I
is,
just wanted to make sure, because it seems like we're getting off a little bit, where
And-
hospitals were,
unless I've misunderstood what we all just agreed on,
right, that's what
we
I thought.
agreed that a policy was, the hospital's closed, the doors are locked, there's a see you next week sign on the front, is the
Right.
only thing that we're going to say exists.
Right,
There's
so-
that, or you're open.
Yes. So,
Don't come here, there's a maniac,
right.
there's a maniac in the yard with a gun. Or don't come
Or under
here.
8 feet of water, you know.
Right.
There's.
I was just starting to get a little
Yeah, it's
confused by the
like a
conversation,
backslip.
whether there was another,
There's no power out there.
There really is.
There's no other option,
Those
right?
things happen.
So it is no longer a request of EMS, hey, please don't do this, it's a, you physically can't do this right now.
I'm just talking about, there's no way, and I can't speak for the area, but I'm going to, that they're gonna put on WETM News, they're closed. No. It's not gonna happen.
So it just means that they'll never go on diversion.
No, there's no diversion, they're just gonna close, but they're not gonna put that out.
I need you to define what.
No, I think that's pretty much where.
Yeah,
it's
because we're
at.
making
The
everyone
hospital
leave.
said we're closed.
Like, it's not open, we're evacuating.
No, there's some,
I don't define
there's
closed.
no law says you're
Because
closed.
that means different things to different.
Have you not been watching?
Well, the
the
405
last couple of years? I mean, we just leave
405
that- we just leave that
Means
stuff
closed,
out.
it's closed.
As in.
No surgeries, no direct admits, no clinical appointments, closed is closed in the 405.
Does that mean all patients in the hospital have to find other hospitals to go to? I mean,
From within the facility that are already there, I do not believe so, but I cannot speak 100% confidently.
I think I can easily fathom situations where the ER is closed because of an active shooter or a flood on the ground floor of the hospital. The upper floors of the hospital are okay.
Still functioning.
So it's really the ER closed, not the hospital closed, although the hospital being closed includes the ER being closed.
So, and this begs a whole other type of scenario. So you're closing your ER, but but there's still the potential to transfer from another facility to go to one of the upper floors, is what you're saying. And that kind of defeats that. No, and I'm saying because I've seen that. I've seen that when the art has been on diversion, and there's ambulances bringing patients to be admitted upstairs.
And back to the
so-
conversation of, okay, that you should be canceling same-day surgeries, canceling direct admits, canceling, all the procedures and so forth, because if you're at an emergency capacity level that you can't take the person off the street having a heart attack, then you shouldn't be taking the direct admit from the nursing home.
Right.
Correct.
And I think we can be saying, if you are telling us your ER is closed, our ambulances will not be bringing patients to your hospital for other reasons, right?
Well,
That is within our purview to say that. I think.
Just one of the things, I think that we also got to keep in mind that the hospital has a responsibility to meet the 405 code and to say what their criteria is for these things for an internal disaster, okay? So that, that stuff is, going to be situationally dependent on the hospital's policies, procedures, their incident command structure, their activation of their command center, all those kind of components that go into, the multiple levels of administration. I think, we can probably get way down into the weeds about all those different operational aspects of it, but I think my concept is that I think you're on the right track to say, hey, look, here is the RE/MAX policy on what it's either open or closed, and here are the criteria, sort of an inclusion criteria that says there's a fire, there's whatever you want to expand it to say that it's a disaster situation. There's, something has occurred at the hospital that makes it unsafe to bring patients there is basically what your level of policy should sort of be related to. You could branch it off any way that you want, but I think you sort of kind of keep it high level and not get too far into the weeds, because the hospital itself has to still have those internal disaster protocols to meet the 405 code. And I know that based on some of the, the epicenter of this particular discussion, our hospital staff was out, reviewing all those policies and procedures with each of those facilities that was involved. So, you certainly can go any way that you want, but if you sort of keep it high level, I think it might be better for the RE/MAX position.
Yeah, and it also needs to protect the hospital.
Yes.
From okay, we're on lockdown. So we're on lockdown because we have a maniac in the hospital with a gun. So we're not going to get an EMTALA violation when an ambulance shows up and we say, no, go away, because they're on the campus. No, you can't come in here. Go away. We're closed. The hospital has to be protected.
Right.
Well, and there's actually an EMTALA exemption for that. So in the regulations, there's the ability, if it's truly a patient safety issue, much the same way that helicopter can land there, and it's not an EMTALA violation.
Right, just to interface, sure, yeah.
So I think if there's a formal declaration that, hey, we had a flood, there's water in the second floor operating suites up to our ankles, ambulances can't come here, and EMTALA would look at that as an exemption, because we've got a formal regional policy that says this hospital is declared an emergency that makes it unsafe for patients. Don't go there until further notice.
I think, Diane, too, one of the other things that maybe we, and we sort of touched on it, but, encouraging those facilities to notify the emergency management office as soon as they get into one of those situations, I think is an important component of it too, that we would overlook that, but it's an important piece. They're sort of, from state assets and, working with the forward-leaning component of our other, state fire and OEM and those kind of components, they want to be notified early. So that's an important piece just to think about.
The other last thing, I guess, probably that not necessarily has to be part of the diversion conversation, but probably should, I would suggest, be part of the conversation for you all is, and it was brought up a little bit, is the transfer pieces and how to appropriately consider and triage. For forever and a day, we've always considered that if we had an internal disaster in a facility, we would just call ambulances. Well, the reality is if your internal disaster is because of patient overcrowding, okay, the ambulances are probably already exhausted. So how are you going to manage, you know, and back to, I think, you know, like what Donnie and Rick and Jimmy and so forth, you know, had gotten at before was, you know, when we're sending patients to Rochester, that's a 4-hour turn for an ambulance coming out of Elmira. 5-hour turn,
Yeah.
okay? And, you know, if you're running a handful of trucks in, you know, this portion of your region, I mean, literally, the number of ambulances that actually do transfers in your region probably could be counted on, you know, one person's hand and feet together. Would you guys agree, disagree? I mean, from, you know, so if you're talking a dozen, you know, between a dozen and 2 dozen possible resources to actually transfer patients, and you had an internal disaster in a hospital that you needed to transfer patients out, and you all of a sudden decided to send 10 to Rochester or, you know, Syracuse or whatever the case may be, you've lost those resources. And there is no other pull immediately. Now, certainly there's countywide mutual aid plans and all this type of stuff, but let's face it, that doesn't happen in a split second. And especially in transfer capacity, it doesn't happen in a split second.
We have an agreement with Onion to get 24 ambulances anywhere in the state within 3 to 4 hours. So if you wait and want it in the next 15 minutes like we often get, you're not going to get it.
Right. And I guess that's the point that I'm kind of getting at is when we identify, you know, coming up with some level from a regional standpoint of engaging not only the Onion resources, but, you know, the state for the statewide mobilization planning purposes and, you know, trying to pull in additional resources or quite frankly utilize some of the resources that may also be available. You know, I know the good doctor over here is, you know, got, and I bring my HEMS world to the table, but HEMS resources that may be able to upstaff an ambulance to a critical care level. Because, let's face it, critical care patients are special patients too, and shouldn't necessarily be going out the door with just a normal, you know, EMT, or EMT brand new paramedic going to Rochester.
In certain levels of disaster and emergency, I can backfill from different states too, so.
So, I mean, just thinking outside of the box or developing a system, really, I mean, it's within the RE/MAX realm, so, you know, because it is an emergency thing.
Could I suggest something to the docs from both Guthrie and from the Arnold Health System? It came up earlier, was mentioned a couple of times, but while we may not be able to do a single regional clearinghouse, maybe the concept of a transfer coordinator, where if Corning has a transfer, instead of calling AMR directly, they route it through Guthrie's transfer center. Let the transfer centers at each system triage their transports.
Oh,
Just a thought, man. No.
We have a dissatisfied customer here.
oh, no, I just, when,
Yep. I think we all get it.
Should we turn the camera on? So that,
Say no more.
Well, I don't know how their transfer center is. Ours is done through the charge nurse who's on, nurse supervisor for the floors for that day. So,
right, so, but when you get to the city, like Strong has U of R has a transfer center.
yeah, they have much more resources to run said thing.
But again, it's proportional to size. I mean, you could have a smaller transfer center.
We already have said smaller transfer center. Unfortunately, that's what the faces her and I were both making at the same time is the functionality of it and the service line.
Fair enough. I mean, just from looking from the outside in,
that would be ideal.
Yeah.
you know, because as a supervisor, a day job, I take calls from ER, third floor, OB,
Right.
ICU, and none of them have a clue what's being transferred out of the rest of the hospital. What they do know is that each of their individual patients is probably the most critical patient.
Right. For me, the most important thing is a clear guideline for triaging these transfers. And then we need someone, a physician, that is going to make the ultimate decision, especially if there's an argument between two different floors or two physicians on who's going to go first. we need someone, either it's the emergency department physician, or if it's the regional medical director.
Or even the agency medical director.
Or even the agency, whoever, but there has to be something in policy or protocol somewhere, someone who actually makes the final decision on what is the more appropriate transfer based on the facts.
But I think if we tie it into an agency medical director or a regional medical director, we're biting off a chunk of liability for him or her triaging patients that they've not seen and don't know.
That's gotta be the
If
ED.
it's,
Yeah.
if
Right.
it's within the hospital.
It has to be the ED.
And it should, and that's what I was leaning to, it should, the emergency room physician, the head attending at whatever hospital, should be the one who makes the
Yes.
ultimate decision for that entire hospital.
I don't know if, as an ER physician, I don't know if that is a realistic thing, because I don't know anything about any of those other patients. So you are then telling the ER doctor to stop the clinical work that they are doing currently and go review these other patients to determine those things. And
Well, maybe.
there are some shifts that I could afford to do that, but a lot of shifts that would be a grinding halt in the
But
ER.
is there maybe a short fact-filled questionnaire that could be filled out about what is the problem with the patient? I can tell you how many times I get a call from a floor wanting to send someone somewhere. Well, tell me what's wrong with the patient. Well, they need to go up there for a higher level of care. What does that mean?
Yeah, so you're talking about within
You
the
know.
hospital, right, within your hospital.
Is that all within
Yeah,
our?
within your hospital, so it's like, it's relatively, I think it's relatively easy. Okay, so you got like, whatever, you have whatever in the ER, like, oh, I don't know, they have a broken something or other that you can't fix here, and then there's somebody in the ICU on pressors in a vent, and they're going down the tube and whatever. So who goes out first? Well, the person in the ICU goes out first, Well, it's usually pretty black and white.
But
it should be the ER doc, it should be the ER doc who's deciding that.
And we're free to call the hospitalist and discuss with the
Oh, yeah,
hospitalist which one.
Sure.
You also have a medical.
Well, it often is ER doc,
Not
if
to
it's
be.
between my ER patient and someone on the floor like that, yeah, I've told them, go ahead and take that one, I've done that. But if there's a kid on peds who I haven't not seen, and a kid person in ICU who I've not seen, and they're asking me to make the decision of who goes first with limited information.
Well, if not you, then who? Is it the paramedic?
I mean, I agree, that if we're saying it is someone in the facility making the decision, the ER doctor in the facility is probably the person who is best equipped to make that decision. But if we're trying to say that Arnett has 2 transfers,
No.
and Corning has
No,
1, and Ira has 1.
That's not what I'm saying. We need to start out.
Just for your facility.
We need to start out at the facility level, and then maybe someday we can branch it out to a regional type deal, but it needs to start in the facility. And there have been times when there's been 2 or 3 transfers at a single facility that we've all gotten within 15 minutes. And now, who needs to go first? And who makes that decision of who goes first?
I think the charge nurse at the hospital has the most information about what's going on the floor.
And they can talk.
And they
talk
can,
to the
they have to
ER
come out,
Yeah.
they can come out and talk to the ER
Yeah.
doctor and fill them in on that, and that's an informed decision.
Well,
But otherwise, it's just kind of, I'm not gonna go up to the floor and.
No, that's what the charge, that's what the
To see if
nurse supervisor is for.
And that's where the idea was going. I mean, right now, the way it tends to work is you get a transfer out of the ER, somebody from the ER calls the ambulance. 3rd floor has a transfer, somebody from 3rd floor calls the ambulance. Everybody calls the ambulance without knowing that there's anything else going on in the hospital. And, call it, I guess transfer coordinator, transfer center, apparently is a bad word here. But some way where all those calls get funneled through one place, whether that's the ER doctor or a hospitalist if there's one on duty 24/7, or however it happens, one person is making a phone call to the ambulance and saying, hey, I got 3 transfers here. This one needs to go first, this one can wait 4 hours.
Or even time to get extra crews.
Or, that would help a lot. I think it would streamline the transfer process on both ends.
So ours does, if we're sending people out, ours does work that way. It all goes through our transfer center. The issue is right now, there's not a medical director. The transfer to comm center. And so sometimes they have difficulty seeing who really needs to go first, but at least there's one common center that knows what's coming in, what's going out. Which I think, which is a start, and then they will reach out to the ER doc because they're right next to
I
us.
mean,
So.
that's who should be making the decision, the doctor.
I think all this committee could do is recommend, I mean, because it's going to be.
Right, we can make recommendations.
It's going to make recommendations, you know, to the different hospitals, as Bob said, on transfer centers, on charters.
You can make recommendations to the hospital, but you can make requirements to the hospitals that they have to follow this triage, this transfer triage. If they have multiple patients coming, if the hospital says, it's free, I'm not gonna follow this. You still have that transfer protocol for an ambulance service who has 3 transfers. What do I do? Who do I get to go?
No, because.
But I don't think that we can say that ambulance service has to go to this physician in the hospital to get, I think we can say you should go to your agency medical director if you have a question, but I don't think we can say you have to go to this person.
And that's fine, but I'm saying there has to be some sort of policy, some sort of protocol, some sort of decision-making tree that allows us to do this, triaging process.
Yeah, but it's, I think, acutely, when you actually make a decision, it's gotta be the ER doctor. It can't be the agency medical director. The agency medical director might be asleep with his or her phone turned off because they worked last night, they gotta work again tonight. They might, whatever. It's gotta be somebody that you can talk to who's there.
And who has access to the patient records if they need to take a quick look. And that was my hope in even bringing it up, was that maybe you guys could kind of suggest it to the people that were here that left already and say, you know what, here's an idea to streamline some of this process. And maybe if it comes from you guys, be a little more well received than if we sat here and said, here's what we think you should do.
I think what we could do that I think would meet everything that we're all talking about would be to, if you are hit with multiple transfers from one facility simultaneously, and the facility is unable to tell you clearly the acuity that they should be triaged in, number one, you should call the person who will be providing you online medical direction from that facility, which presumably is the ER doctor. And if that doesn't work, then I think you do need to call your agency medical director because that's what they're there for.
Sure.
And if that's something that we all agreed to do when we said we'd be agency medical director, we'd be on call for our agencies.
Yeah.
I move that this meeting end.
One quick thing, Jimmy, did you want to bring up about the regional medical director position? Real quick?
We were looking, we've got that stipend for the regional medical director, and we just need to know what the REMAC wants of the regional medical director. And a regional medical director will not represent the REMAC, but the group of doctors is the best say, what can you provide the region as a doctor?
And to be clear, the regional medical director is not the same thing as the REMAC chair, although that is what it is right now.
Right.
But statutorily, it could be one person filling both of those roles, but it is not a requirement and they do not come together. The REMAC, everybody is a volunteer person, including the chair.
Right, and so the regional medical director will become a stipend position, but there has to be, and the state has told us, you just can't pay the doctor to be a regional medical director. There has to be some sort of bang for the buck. There has to be something tangible that you receive back from that position. And maybe that's, we're looking for suggestions from the REMAC on what would be some tangible things that you would like to see the regional medical director be responsible for and to do.
And it is totally fine for us to say, yeah, we don't think we need this.
Exactly.
And then the stipend just goes away.
It goes away.
From the phone call, the conference call that Don and like Paula and I were on, that, just a reminder, that was pretty clear. If we decide to do this, there needs to be a clearly defined job description.
Right.
And a written memorandum of agreement between the council and whoever would choose to be the regional medical director. And as I look at it, some of these things like policy review and things like that might be things that you'd think to include include in that job description. But I was kind of hoping, I know Doc's really, really busy, but at the time, the day of the phone call, I said, hey, think about this, bring us a job description that we can take a look at and maybe work through some details,
But it would be a separate position from the REMAC chair. It would be the same person.
Could be,
But
doesn't have to.
but it would be a separate position.
yeah.
So just some ideas to start thinking about.
Was that like a taco?
Yes,
You know, they
Exactly
get
the
those,
goal.
they get those in Rochester.
It's a 1989 Chevy Suburban.
I heard about an
It's only
ambulance.
a four.
Are we finished with new business, old business?
good lord, I hope so.
I'm gonna make a motion.
Second.
Did you mention the refreshments?
Oh, the
So-
state of New York.
You're over there.
We
Sit
can
on
no
my
longer,
chair, yeah.
we can no longer pay for refreshments out of council money. However, the state also allows council members to charge for mileage. So at the